Previously on the Rubin Report.
You naughty and nasty.
You will be prosecuted.
It's your party.
I'm not condoning the breaking of law, but of course we needed more border security.
If your son was applying to Harvard or your son was applying to Google.
If Google were to say we consider diversity as one criteria, I would be fine with that.
How you doing, guys? I'm Dave Rubin. This is the Rubin Report. It is May 2nd, 2025. Do not adjust your screens. Yes, it is true. I am sitting a little lower than normal because we are in between two in-person interviews that will be put up next week because I got a bit of travel, so we did not adjust the set. We just sat me down and I'm lower. It's okay. There's nothing medically wrong with you. Everything is just fine. We are live streaming on Rumble, YouTube, and Locals. As always, I know you've already subscribed. I know you've tapped that notification bell, and I know you share all of our videos, so I won't ask you to do that. And it is Friday, so we have no post-game show. We will be doing a Rubin Report Locals Community Q&A, which we normally do on Thursdays, but had Congressman Ro Khanna on yesterday, so we're doing that today, and we're catching up just on all the stuff that I could not get to throughout the week. We've got some Hamas stuff, we've got a little bit of throwback Thomas Sowell stuff, we've got Jon Stewart, who was supposed to save the libs and then became a progressive dingbat. We've got the impending war with Canada, a little CNN meltdown, and then some good stuff out of the Trump administration. Oh, and Kamala Harris, remember that lady? She came back. She is no better than she was before, but we'll play a clip or two of a big speech that she gave. Oh, and I just heard that next week, Joe and Jill Biden will be on The View. We're very excited about that, so we'll get that to you next week. But let's start with Alex Karp. We've shown you a couple of videos, probably a dozen videos or so, in the last year or so of Alex Karp. He is the CEO of Palantir. I've also had Peter Thiel, co-founder of Palantir, and Joe Lonsdale, one of the founders of Palantir, on the show. And Alex Karp, I think, has just become one of the leading communicators of American values and why this country and Western values are good. He's doing just a great job of this while also leading a multi-billion-dollar public corporation, Palantir. And here he was at an event that had nothing to do with Hamas or Israel or Gaza or anything else. And of course, the usual suspects start screaming at him, and I think he just did a nice job with this. Take a look.
That a few people get wealthy, and if you said platitudes that were obviously stupid, you could...
You're getting wealthy off of killing Palestinians. With Palantir kills Palestinians with their AI and technology.
Oh.
You're killing my family in Palestine.
Yeah. And, you know...
What kind of person are you? How do you sleep at night?
Well, if you...
Shame on you.
Do you want to hear my answer?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. So, I think the primary cause of death to Palestinians...
That's not funny.
Okay. Do you want to hear the answer, or do you want to yell?
For no reason.
Well, you don't want to hear an answer?
I want to
Obviously. So the primary source of death in Palestine is the fact that Hamas has realized that there are millions and millions of useful idiots that will...
Using that excuse. This is why you don't get left to speak. Because you are killing my people and you're justifying it because of Hamas or anyone else.
Can we get security up there?
Okay. One of the most...
How dare you?
Okay.
How dare you? Your AI and your technology from Palantir kills Palestinians.
Mostly terrorists. That's true.
No, it's not everybody. If you say mostly, so it's okay to kill
Okay.
innocent others.
Look, if your argument was so strong, wouldn't you let me talk?
Okay, fear not. We'll get to the part where he gives the great explanation of free speech and Western values and all that good stuff in just a second. I wanted to start with that clip and then jump back here because what is happening all across the country right now is these people who think they are so right about everything. I mean, this hysterical girl, hysterical. Can I speak? Yeah, go ahead. And then everyone laughs and then she's upset that they're laughing at her. These hysterical people who think they are so right about everything. Do you have any idea what they would do if they had the power? Do you think if that girl had the power and all of these mass jihadis, these LARPing buffoons, if they had the power to silence and kill all of their opposition, would they do it, yes or no? And the obvious answer is yes. I don't know that they would kill everybody. I think a certain percentage of them absolutely would. But I would say almost all of them would gladly silence everybody. They're using all of our Western values, all of our cares for free speech and plurality against us. And here you have just like a thoughtful guy. I always say the funny thing about him is he looks like the creator of the Oasis from Ready Player One. What was the guy's name again? I always forget the guy's name. Who created the Oasis in Ready Player One in the movie? He literally looks like the guy. But any event, James Halliday, thank you. If you haven't seen the movie, a great movie by Spielberg. The book's even better, which is from 30 or so years ago. But anyway, this idea that you should just show up anywhere and start screaming, and because you can scream louder than somebody, that's actually not a proper exercise of free speech. Using your free speech to shut down someone else's free speech is actually not the social exchange that we should all be having, right? That's not within the spirit of what free speech is really about. Anyway, Alex Karp let this girl go on, and here he explains what free speech is and why the battle of ideas is important. And I would say he goes even a little further than I would go. I'll explain that in just a moment. Take a look.
One of the most important things, first of all, I really support free speech. So the part where you get up and say what you think, I'm 100% on your side. If your argument is that strong, why will you not let the other side talk? And there, it's like obviously, if the argument was as simple, and by the way, the pain of Palestinians is something that everybody, and anyone who dies in war, obviously people care about, I care about that. The obvious solution to war is to have the West having the strongest, most precise, deadly weapons possible so that we can minimize unnecessary innocent deaths. And by the way, the primary way you minimize these deaths is you're so strong no one attacks you. These are all completely legitimate topics. But if we who disagree with being shouted at do not stand up and say, we got to fight back, at least talk about and force discursive discussion.
Okay, so he goes on and on. He has a great way of just communicating complex things in a very simple, I don't know, maybe it's because of a little bit of the crazy hair. He looks like a mad scientist or something. The part that I think he goes a little almost too far is when he's basically saying the part where you get up to say what you want. Well, yes, you do get up to say what you want, but if you're screaming someone else down, which is what she was doing, that isn't right. Now, I don't know the exact format of the conversation they were having there, but usually these things end with Q&As. And I know that every single time in the last 10 years that I've done a Q&A at a college or anywhere else, I always ask for the most difficult questions, or if you don't agree with me, come up first. That's something that Charlie Kirk and I were doing years and years ago at the height of all of the cancellation stuff. We would always say, if you don't agree with us, come up first, because there's just no other point for us to just say more of the things that you might agree with, right? So of course, everyone should be allowed to speak, but again, using your speech to silence someone else is not exactly what the exchange of free speech is. Then he makes the great point that we in the West, if we have peace through strength, right? If we are strong and our enemies realize we're strong, that's how you make sure that the least amount of people are killed, right? Because then people won't mess with you. I think this is where a lot of the libertarian arguments run thin to me, that just saying, I never want war, I always want peace. Yes, we all want that. That's nice, but it's a very seventh grade attitude towards the way the world works. If someone is really bad and someone's trying to come and kill your family and kidnap your children and all of these horrible things, just saying, I want peace, that doesn't do anything. But if they have the threat, oh boy, these guys have crazy weapons, and they have seriously precise weapons, by the way, that's how you will minimize all of these things. So to the extent that Palantir is involved in any of this, and by the way, Palantir is working with various governments all over the world, and if you haven't seen my interview with Joe Lonsdale, one of the co-founders of Palantir, he talks about the amount of terrorist attacks that they've stopped. They're not even allowed to share all of that information for obvious reasons. But if we in the West, if freedom-loving people who realize that we don't get to own the world and make everyone bow to us, if we have strong weapons and peace through strength and show people, hey, just don't mess with us. We have a certain way of living. You can have your way of living too, but you just can't rampage our stuff and rape our women. That's how you will get peace. And that also, as he illustrated there, is if you calmly explain this stuff to people, hopefully some of this will come around. Now, part of the problem here, and this is an old clip that we showed you, I think once or twice over the last year or so, is that so much of what has happened on the left is the left are obsessed with victims or perceived victims, right? So if you are a minority, you are supposed to be a victim. Now, there's several groups, but most notably the Jews who don't fit into that, because Jews who have been oppressed and pogromed and holocausted and gone through the Spanish Inquisition and all of these things somehow figure out a way to be successful. That's largely because of family and culture and tradition and caring about education and all of these things. And that doesn't fit in the left's intersectional calculator, so they hate them the most, because it's like, oh, you're proof that what we are saying is not right. We need our minorities to be oppressed. Here is Thomas Sowell on that.
Fascinating story, because among the middleman minorities, of which the Jews are the most prominent, the hostility to these people in countries around the world is out of all proportion to that, to any other kind of group I can think of. In terms of violence, the number of Chinese killed, let's say, in 1 year, and by mob action, exceeds all the blacks lynched in the entire history of the United States. And the number of Armenians killed in Turkey, during the First World War, is greater than that. And of course, the number of Jews slaughtered on a number of occasions in history, even before the Holocaust, is greater than that. So that the question is, why this particular kind of people are the targets of so much venomous hatred? Years ago, one official of one of the Jewish organizations in New York asked me, well, what can Jews themselves do in order to minimize the hostility they face? And I gave him a one-word answer: fail. Because as long as you succeed, you're going to be hated.
Yeah, and it would be better for Jews and everyone else not to fail. How about get in the game? How about care about the things that will lead you to success, like education, like family, like knowledge, like hard work, things like that? Maybe if you're jealous of the Jews, you should emulate some of those things. Not that all Jews are great at all of those things. I know a lot of Jews who are utter failures. But the basic idea here is that we as a society for the last decade have put so much primacy on victimhood and minorities and all of these things that now the very people who purportedly care about the oppressed are going after the people that they should be probably defending more than anyone else in some weird sense. Here's a little more on Thomas Sowell and his explanation of how liberals just play on pity and victimization, and it actually does not make sense if you look at the numbers.
Is the victim mentality holding you back in life?
You can't stand self-pity. Is that part of what's going on here?
Partly, yeah.
And somehow or other, the liberal project plays on pity.
Yes. And in fact, in the book that I'm writing now, I discovered this is true not only in the United States, it's true in England, and the situation is wholly different. And yet, if you read the data, for example, from London, the educational tests and so forth, you see that there, immigrants from Africa pass this test they have. I'm talking about low-income people now, nearly 60% of the time. Blacks from Caribbean, like 50%, so on. Native-born whites in the same low-income bracket pass this test 30% of the time. And it's the same thing. The foreign people come in, they haven't had generations of being steeped in the welfare state vision, the vision of grievances, victimology, and resentments. The idea that there are enemies out there dedicated to keeping you down. That's the message that's been pumped into the head of the white lower class in Britain, and that's the image that's been pumped into the black low-income people in the United States.
Do you get how dangerous that is? If you just look at someone and you say, you are of this religion, you are of this skin color, you're of this sexuality or gender, and then, I mean, I know you guys know this, but it's just we still have to get these points across and say, okay, so this is how it is for you. The system is rigged against you. Then those people will be willing to burn down virtually everything, right, in the name of getting to their new utopia. But then he points out that these new immigrants who happen to be black come over from Africa, and there's many examples of this, where they come over to Africa, and because they haven't been trained into thinking that the welfare state is important and everything is against them, and they're not getting all these handouts, they bust their asses and work hard, just like probably your grandparents or great-grandparents did, and then they make it better for the generation beneath them, versus the people who are stuck in a cycle of poverty, who are basically given just enough to keep going, but never really succeed. And that's another reason that we have to think through all of these government programs. Has any government program, as it relates to homelessness or getting people off drugs or handing out food stamps, or anything, does it work? And the answer almost exclusively is no. Speaking of things that don't work, Jon Stewart was once the guy for 20 years on American television who everyone said more young people get their news from Jon Stewart than anywhere else. That was just the meme around Jon Stewart. And he had The Daily Show when it was popular. He left The Daily Show a couple of years ago. He gave it to that racist guy, and then that didn't work out. So now they have a rotating host. I think Jon hosts it once a week. But he has still a guy who should have defended true liberalism. He went into all of the woke left bullshit, trans nonsense. He has complete Trump derangement syndrome. Here he is on Trump and deportations. And yeah, we're going to clean it up after.
We are going to start the largest mass deportation in the history of our country. And we are going to start with violent criminals. We're going to get people out that are criminals and horrible people. Hannibal Lecter is coming in, lots of them.
Lots of them. So many of them. It's like that Timothy Chalamet lookalike event. But for Hannibal Lecters. By the way, wouldn't massing a bunch of Hannibal Lecters around the border be a solution for immigration? There was a line here yesterday. Now it's just shoes and empty Chianti bottles. So are we taking out the Lecters? The worst of the worst?
Last week's deportations included 3 American children, all U.S. citizens. One of them is battling cancer.
Oh, my God. Are you what? That's who we're deporting? A kid with cancer? Trump really doesn't understand how the Make-A-Wish Foundation works, does he?
John, you need 20 writers for that? How many writers do you have on that show? I have no writers. And this is how funny we are over here. But relative to the amount of writers, I'd say we're funnier. Okay, the jokes are no good, the canned laughter, all that stuff. But it is interesting. He shows you these numbers. A 2-year-old was deported and a 4-year-old and a 7-year-old. So he shows you 4 examples. There were 4 examples that they showed you right there. That's 4 out of 139,000. We checked the numbers right before the show. So since Trump has taken over, 139,000 people have been deported. Now, he has 4 examples of young children that have been deported. But you know what? I don't have any more to add on this. Let's just go to Scott and the retards.
The children that you mentioned were not deported. They went with their mothers. Their mothers requested that the children come with them. So their mothers were deported because they were illegal aliens.
They didn't get through the process.
And so
to go through
they went.
process.
So there's really 2 choices here: split the family or keep the family together. The U.S. government's policy here was to let the mothers decide. The mothers decided to take the children. That's number one. On the Garcia case, effectively what you all are arguing for, passionately, and what Democrats are passionately arguing for, is for the President of the United States to re-import a dangerous member of a transnational terrorist organization who has clear affiliations with a gang that commits heinous atrocities. That is not what he was elected to do. And whether you bring him back here or not, I'm just going to explain to you the politics of this through telling you what the Speaker of the House, Hakeem Jeffries, did today, which is that he told his members, please, for the love of God, stop going to El Salvador and dying on this hill. The politics of this could not be worse for the left and worse for Democrats because the president knows he was elected to protect us from MS-13, and that is what they are doing.
Yeah, that's right. Again, 80-20 issue for Trump. Most of America's with him on this. You guys want to keep going to El Salvador, fine. But to get to the earlier point, so congratulations, Jon Stewart. You put up a graphic from CNN that showed 4 young people that were taken away. As Scott points out, the government didn't just grab those children and kick them out and separate them from their mothers. The government realized that the mothers were illegal, and then it gave them the choice. Would you like to leave your children in America, or would you like to take them with you? That is actually a kind choice for the government to make. The mothers, I think, made the wise decision, because what could be important than keeping your family together, of taking their children. But again, congratulations. You found 4 examples to get all of these idiots on CNN to go crazy out of 139,000 people who have been deported that were illegal, including people who were gang members and rapists and murderers, et cetera, et cetera. They continued on the Jon Stewart Daily Show. He brought in Mark Carney, who will be the new Prime Minister of Canada, and he's a real tough guy. And listen to all the canned laughter that they got at Trump's expense.
What are they making up there of the overtures and sort of trolling to Canada about being a part of the United States?
Well, I mean, the bottom line is not going to happen. The overture. I mean,
because you don't want.
Well, we're we're proud. We find you very attractive, but we're not moving in with you. It's not you. It's us. We do things a little differently in Canada. We believe in.
I just want to, before you go any further, I'm up for it. We're up for it. Whatever you do differently. We want to experiment too. What do you guys want?
We can
be. You want like.
We can be friends. There can be a few benefits, John. Friends with benefits, but not. We're not going to commit all the way. Benefits of trade, benefits of defense.
Let me tell you something. As a guy that's worked on some TV shows over the years, that was an intern at The Daily Show when John took over in 1999. When you hear that hysterical laughter, like someone screaming in the background when he's like, the bottom line, it's not going to happen. And then they're like, it's fake. It's all fake. Not only do they fiddle with the audio levels of the laughter, but the women that you hear scream, no one would scream, well, it's not going to happen. We're not going to be annexed. It's fake. They have someone that works for them. It's a PA or an intern or it's a producer that starts the applauding. These shows literally have signs that tell people when to applaud and when to laugh. It's all fake, and you can see it's all scripted and boring and nonsense, and good luck, Canada, with that guy. Here he is again. He's a tough guy, though, and Canada doesn't like America anymore.
We are once again at one of those hinge moments of history. Our old relationship with the United States, a relationship based on steadily increasing integration, is over. The system of open global trade, anchored by the United States, a system that Canada has relied on since the Second World War, a system that, while not perfect, has helped deliver prosperity for a country for decades, is over. But it's also our new reality. We are over the shock of the American betrayal, but we should never forget the lessons.
Oh, you're over the shock of the American betrayal? You mean all of the deals that you just referenced since World War II that were lopsided in your favor, and we asked for just better deals? It's over? Well, okay. I love Canadians. I don't know how many times I say this on this show. I've loved every time going to Canada and doing shows in Canada, and I just love the Canadian spirit. It's so, generally speaking, like kind of carefree, because it's been pretty good for Canada until these last maybe, 7 to 10 years of Trudeau and lockdowns and arresting truckers and all of those things. But sorry, I do think you guys need us more than we need you. That's the same thing for China. Right? So sorry. Now, you can make the argument that Trump made a mistake by going so hard and making so many jokes about 51st state that it galvanized support for the main opposition to Trump, which was not going to be the conservative, but it was going to be the liberal, Mark Carney. So you might make an argument for that. And you could also make an argument that that's exactly what Trump wanted to do, because it's easier to smack around a lefty who just talks a lot and doesn't do good things and doesn't really know how to fight. So we will see where that all shakes out. But I think if you're a Canadian, at the very least, you can be happy that the Green Party did not win the election.
About the election, but I'm just going to wait till it's my turn. And we're the warm-up act, because you've got real musicians and real talent coming up soon. So we figured, it's my party, so I can sing if I want to. Life can be so sweet on the sunny side of the street. And to hear that pitter-pat, and that happy tune is your step. Life can be so sweet on the sunny side of the street. I used to walk in.
I have two things to say about that. Number one, stay off the pot, kids. One of the things that sucks about getting older is that, I don't think there's really anything wrong with smoking pot, but if you're running, do it control it, whatever. All right, don't become a hardcore pothead, et cetera, et cetera. But like, you don't want to be that. You don't want to be that. So like, if one day you're running a party, the Green, like, just, okay, you get the point. Number 2, their first 2 albums were better. You know, they really were. I don't know what happened with that one. They just lost it. They lost it. They probably couldn't remember the lyrics. Kamala Harris is back. She's talking about elephants.
In fact, please allow me, friends, to digress for a moment. Okay. It's kind of dark in here, but I'm asking for a show of hands. Who saw that video from a couple of weeks ago? The one of the elephants at the San Diego Zoo during the earthquake? Google it if you've not seen it. So that scene has been on my mind. Everybody's asking me, what you've been thinking about these days? Well...
Ladies and gentlemen, we dodged a bullet. Like, just bring her back. And as I said, Biden is going to be on The View next week. We dodged. There is something dysregulated about that woman. How, after all of the press and everything of the 6 months that she campaigned or whatever it was, the body language, it's something's wrong with her. It's as if an alien is trying to break through. Like I always say, Gavin Newsom's is just a lizard man inside. But with that, but okay, whatever, something about an elephant. We talk a lot on this show about waking up, not just politically, but physically too. And what you put in your body to start the day matters. That's why I drink 1775 coffee. Their Rejuvenate Roast is a bold, dark roast infused with a compound that supports energy and recovery. Some research even suggests this compound can help reverse biological age by up to 8 years. If you want even more focus and clarity, they've got a mushroom coffee too, packed with 5 functional mushrooms like lion's mane and cordyceps to keep you sharp, energized, and dialed in. It's single origin coffee roasted fresh every week in Miami by people who actually believe in freedom, truth, and responsibility. No woke branding, no corporate nonsense. Just great coffee that shares the values we talk about here every single day. Head on over to 1775coffee.com. Use code Rubin for 15% off and start your day with coffee that stands for truth, freedom, and the country that you believe in. This is a Friday show, so the segues don't fully make sense. Here's Anna Navarro also having sort of an out-of-body experience on CNN.
No, I know you're not. If you come to this country illegally, you are going home. Simple as that. We do not have unlimited resources.
I think
in
a
this
lot of
country
Americans
to take care of other people.
There's a hell of a lot of people
other
than the black people who were brought here as slaves who came to this country illegally.
They're not the same as black people who were brought here against our will.
That's exactly what I just said.
I said there is a lot of people.
There's a big difference.
There is a big difference.
That's exactly what I just said.
There is a big difference.
That's exactly what I just said, Shermichael. Look and act indignant. That's exactly what I just said.
It's not about acting indignant.
Yes, it is.
Let me just Shermichael.
That's other than the black
Anna and Shermichael,
please. There are a lot of people from
Shermichael, I think you actually misheard what she. I think you misheard what she said.
No, he purposely misheard it.
She said.
I purposely misheard. So now you're in my brain.
Shermichael, listen to me for just a second.
Is that where we're going?
You think I would say I who have advocated for black people my entire life would say something like that?
Anna,
because you've advocated for black people, great. Congratulations. Last time I checked, I'm black. You're not.
Okay, Shermichael.
That's right. I'm Latino, and my people are being racially profiled.
It is.
And do I have to remind you the history of my people?
Sure.
Do you want to go there?
No, I don't.
Do you really want to go
we're
there?
going to go to break.
Raul,
we're going to go to break. Raul Reyes, thank you very much for joining us. Everybody else, hang tight.
History was not
we'll be right back.
when I was studying history, like the president.
These people are paid for that. Can you imagine someone at the end of the day, like, you did a fine job today, let's give you your check. First off, Shermichael is becoming an all-star over there. You know, Scott Jennings obviously gets a lot of credit, but Shermichael, he's just standing up there, just laying it. And I love, she just wants to be a victim so fucking badly. My people are being racially profiled. No, they're not. No, they're not. They're not. Nobody cares if you're Hispanic. Muy bien. It's great. Are you here legally? Have at it. But if you are illegal, you might be in trouble. But that has to do with legal status, not your ethnicity. And immediately, even his response to that, like, she's like, my people are being, and he's like, well, I'm black. He doesn't want to play that game, but if you want to play stupid games, you will win stupid prizes. Speaking of stupid games and stupid prizes, Jasmine Crockett.
As far as I'm concerned, you randomly kidnapping folk and you throwing them out of the country against their civil rights, against their constitutional rights. And frankly, how would they feel if some other country decided that they were going to just start throwing people randomly in our country? Like that is absolutely insane. So yes, all I got to say is y'all need to get these fools out of here.
I don't even know what she was saying there. I don't even think she knows. I literally think she's like, let me get the fake accent on and let me get it talking and I'm gonna talk about some stuff and see what happens and people will just replay those videos like Dave Rubin because I'm gonna say some stupid stuff. We're not randomly throwing people out. We are specifically throwing out illegal people. And then if an illegal person has a little child, we even give them the choice if they want to take the child or not. That's not Nazi level stuff. And I don't know what she's talking about throwing people in here. Yeah, a whole bunch of countries like China have tried to flood us with people, but you can't come. We've closed the door. Shop is closed. Ted Lieu is an idiot. He is from California. All of them. Every single freaking one of them. He's a congressman from California. He's an awful, awful human being. I'm pretty sure he's called me racist a couple times on Twitter. He's a terrible human being. Here he is because Pramila Jayapal, who's also another horrible human being, she tried to pass a ridiculous amendment stopping ICE from deporting U.S. citizens. Now, of course, ICE can't deport U.S. citizens. You know why, Connor? You know why? Because U.S. citizens are U.S. citizens, right. So it's a completely ridiculous amendment they are trying to pass, but watch the trickery of Ted Lieu.
The fact that Democrats and my colleague, Representative Pramila Jayapal, feel the need to even introduce an amendment that says ICE cannot deport U.S. citizens is bat crazy. This should not even be a discussion. It is not even a question. U.S. citizens cannot be deported by ICE. It's the law, it's the Constitution. I will be astounded if Republicans vote no on this. I yield back.
Ted Lieu, I know it's Friday. Ted Lieu, you're a fucking idiot. You're a fucking idiot. You just explained why the bill is moronic. You can't do that. It is illegal to deport legal citizens. So you are admitting in your very sentence that the lady, that ugly witch-like woman next to you, is trying to create an amendment for something that cannot be done. And then you're trying to guilt Republicans into signing on to something that literally can't be done, you horrible human who used to raise a lot of money from a meth addict who killed a bunch of homeless black guys in West Hollywood. Yeah, Google it if you're not sure what I'm talking about. Now let's go to Florida, because there's a lot of good stuff happening here. We've got a governor who is highly functional. We have a police department and a series of institutions that do the right thing. And we're strengthening all of those institutions. And if you come here and you're illegal, you cannot stay.
Tomorrow. And so those are the types of numbers you need to really be able to put a dent in what Biden did. I mean, Biden let in millions and millions, and there were already millions and millions of illegal aliens. You got to get those numbers up. So we're proud of doing that. We're the only state that's doing it at that level. However, we're ready to do more. We want DHS to approve some of our plans. We have the best emergency response and problem-solving units in the country. I can set up at a moment's notice within 72 hours, 10,000 beds, for illegals so they can be processed and deported. We can run flights to El Salvador, wherever they need to. So we're doing a lot.
Guys, the choice is just so obvious, right? We all get it. The choice is obvious. You can either live in a place with competent governance, with people who understand what the difference between being illegal and legal is, what being a citizen and a non-citizen is, what law and order is versus complete anarchy and chaos. Or you can choose the other thing. And the other thing is really, really bad. People that don't understand the difference between any of those things. And that's what New York and Cali and many of the blue states are going to keep doing. But here in Florida, it's not just that we have the best law enforcement and that we are coordinating with ICE. So if you get caught here in Florida by local Florida PD, you're driving down Alligator Alley and they catch you, they're going to deport you if you are illegal, not just send you to some Florida penitentiary. Yeah, we can get the bed set up real quick. We do all that stuff, and then you're out. And that's mature governance, and it's why DeSantis won by 20 points, and why we are the most flourishing state in the nation that has the #1 economy, #1 education, #1 in bringing in new people, and all of the rest of it. It's obvious and real. Timu Obama, Hakeem Jeffries, here he is, and this is a man who, he had a big week because he sat on his ass for 15 hours with Cory Booker outside of the Capitol. So that was the big thing he did this week. Here he is just completely making up nonsense about Medicaid, and then Trump actually telling the truth about Medicaid.
Of the health care of the American people. It is outrageous that Donald Trump and congressional Republicans are trying to enact the largest cut to Medicaid in American history. They will hurt families, hurt children, hurt seniors, hurt women, hurt veterans, and hurt disabled Americans. Hospitals will close, nursing homes will shut down, and people will die.
We will always protect Medicare and Social Security for our great seniors with no cuts, and we will defend Medicaid for those great people that are in need. House Republicans are working to invest more money in Medicaid than we spend today. The only thing we're going to cut is the corruption and the crooks that take advantage of some of the illegal schemes.
And it's like, guys, just choose a side. And I get it. People's brains have been broken, and Trump derangement syndrome is a real illness and everything else. But Trump has never said he's going to cut Social Security and Medicare. As a matter of fact, just days ago, he's saying the complete opposite. What he did do is start cutting some of the fraud. And the Democrats might want to think about it for a moment. Why are they so invested in keeping the fraud? Why are they so invested in keeping the slush fund? Why do they want so much money being wasted in the system? Unless it's that they're kind of getting kickbacks of it, or their entire party has been propped up through USAID and all of these things. So they're just liars. They know that they're lying. They know we know that they're lying, and they continue to lie. It is rather extraordinary. What's also rather extraordinary is that good things are happening. Despite all of the liars and the buffoons and the clowns and everything else, more and more investment is happening here in the United States. Here's Trump on that.
This week we're celebrating the most successful first 100 days of any administration in American history. We're thrilled to welcome to the White House dozens of the world top leaders of all kinds, but in particular business leaders. And since the election, the companies represented in this room have collectively announced more than $2 trillion in new investments. And
we're going to build NVIDIA's technology, the next generation of that, all here in the United States. Without the president's leadership, his policies, his support, and very importantly, his strong encouragement. And I mean his strong encouragement. Frankly, manufacturing in the United States wouldn't have accelerated to this pace.
Yeah, so NVIDIA, they make chips. Have you heard about AI? There's going to be a major AI race, and we are going to need the best computers. We're going to need the best chips. We don't want to just be reliant on Taiwan and China, and particularly China, when it comes to getting chips and being able to make things, because we're in a race with them to get to whatever the next version of humanity that is going to be largely AI powered is going to be. So Trump has created the conditions so we can manufacture here once again. So whatever the next crisis might be, whether it's a technological crisis or a pandemic crisis or whatever, imagine if we could produce things here. So if there was a pandemic, we wouldn't have to get all our masks from China. Wouldn't that be something else? The guy that, of course, who has led all, or I would say a huge portion, let's say, of the fixing of all of this is Elon Musk, who finally now, after a couple months of running DOGE, saving billions and billions of dollars, and undoubtedly there's more to be saved. He's going to be stepping back in his role, going back to Tesla and doing some other things. And here's Elon talking about Trump and some of the things that he's accomplished.
The American people voted for secure borders, safe cities, and sensible spending. And that's what they've gotten. A tremendous amount has been accomplished in the first 100 days. As everyone has said, it's more than has been accomplished in any administration before, ever, period. this portends very well for what will happen for the rest of the administration. I think this could be the greatest administration since the founding of the country.
Well, we all want to thank you for your help. You really have sacrificed a lot. Been treated very unfairly.
Well, they do like to burn my cars, which is not great. You know, it would be better.
But you have been treated unfairly. But the vast majority of people in this country really respect and appreciate you, and this whole room can say that very strongly. You've really been a tremendous help. You opened up a lot of eyes as to what could be done, and we just want to thank you very much. And you know, you're invited to stay as long as you want. At some point, I guess he wants to get back home to his cars and his. You've done an incredible job. $150 billion. Think of this.
Yeah. 160 now.
Yeah, 160.
What a nice moment, guys. And it's just perfectly illustrative of everything I'm always talking about. We are so not used to good, competent people doing things that when you see it, it's almost like you're almost watching like an alien that speaks another language, like that he speaks off the cuff, that he's joking. Like he's like, well, I wish they wouldn't have burned all my cars. And then he smiles about it. Because do you think, as the left would say, as all these idiots on CNN and MSNBC say, do you think it's like he was doing this to get tax cuts for billionaires? Or did he do it because he really cares about this country and he saved an awful lot of money and we cut an awful lot of fraud and abuse, and that will then hopefully pave the way for all sorts of things to get better, right? As Bobby goes into HHS and cleans it up, as Marco Rubio goes into the State Department and cleans it up and gets rid of the deep state people, as Pete Hegseth does that at the Department of Defense. So good people have gotten on board here, and it's great to see. And I want to do one other thing before we get to the community Q&A, which is that there is a little reshuffling of the administration already. This happened yesterday from Trump on Truth Social. I'm pleased to announce that I will be nominating Mike Waltz to be the next U.S. ambassador to the United Nations. From his time in uniform on the battlefield, in Congress, and as my national security advisor, Mike Waltz has worked hard to put our nation's interests first. I know that he will do the same in his new role. In the interim, Secretary of State Marco Rubio will serve as national security advisor while continuing his strong leadership at the State Department. Together, we will continue to fight tirelessly to make America and the world safe again. Thank you for your attention in this matter. So, of course, Mike Waltz was the guy who people said was the one who accidentally put the Atlantic reporter in that Signal chat. That was a couple weeks ago. It largely went away. But Mike Waltz, maybe it has something to do with that, maybe it doesn't, but he will now head up our situation at the United Nations. And most people think he's highly competent and ready for that, and that will be good. And the United Nations deserves nothing than being smacked down, kind of like Nikki Haley did under Trump the first time around. And Marco Rubio will now also be National Security Advisor. So he's Secretary of State, also be National Security Advisor. Again, I just think it's more layers of competence and good stuff. Now let's talk about CB Distillery and then questions on the other side. If you're tossing and turning at night or feeling on edge during the day, it might be time to try CBD from CB Distillery. Millions have already made the switch because it works. In fact, over 90% of customers report better sleep with CBD, but it's not just for sleep. CB Distillery has targeted formulas for stress, mood, focus, post-workout pain, and even CBD for pets. All made with clean premium ingredients, no fillers, no junk. With over 2 million happy customers and 100% money-back guarantee, CB Distillery is the name to trust. And right now you can save 25% off your entire purchase. Just go to cbdistillery.com and use promo code Rubin. That's cbdistillery.com, promo code Rubin. All right, RubinReport.locals.com, community Q&A, here we go. I'll fight you naked says, I'm suspicious that Governor Shapiro will be left off the 2028 Democratic presidential candidate list. Given the recent arson incident, it seems like he's already being positioned as a sympathetic figure. What are your thoughts? I mean, look, even though I disagree with him on a whole host of issues, he is not a completely insane, lunatic, far-left, Marxist, progressive Democrat. He is someone that I think loves this country. He may want a little bit of a bigger government. I think he's a little misguided and confused on some things. But I think the party's done with that. They might fake it, right? Like we might roll into, the 2028 situation, and they might try to fake it and find somebody that doesn't come off as a complete lunatic, but the energy obviously is with the lunatics. And I would say that to whatever extent Shapiro is a moderate Democrat, I think what he will find is there will be plenty of room for him in the wide tent Republican movement. I'm not saying the guy's switching, but I just don't see a future for a moderate. So whether he's got a sympathy vote because they burned down his house, or which they literally tried to do. Someone tried to burn down his house because of what he was doing to Palestine, as if the governor of Pennsylvania has anything to do with that. I just think they're done with him, and they're done with Jews. Also, it's sad but true. I'm sorry, it is. So I don't see much of a future for him at a national level, at least through the Democrat Party. But could you see a guy like him being like, well, you know what? They're all fucking bananas, and I'm going this way, and then Trump bringing him in? Of course you could see it. Kelly says, we have Charlie Kirk, TPUSA going to colleges, but we need someone going to talk with older people and doing what Charlie does. They are so misinformed because of the news. Who can we send? I would love to do that. I think that's a great idea. I love old people. I love Cocoon. I love Golden Girls. Other old things, the movie Batteries Not Included. Did you ever see that with old people? I like Cocoon too. No, I like old people in general, and you can learn a lot from old people, but you are right, partly because of the way the news has worked for so long and the way technology changed. Imagine you're a 75-year-old person, like everything is so different than it was 20 years ago, and you're still somewhat reliant on a bunch of stuff that's been lying to you. It's very hard to extricate yourself out of that, and I suspect there'll be some version of that in 27 years when I'm 75, right? Like there'll be something that'll have so radically changed that maybe I won't be as hip and cool and on it as I am right now. I know that's hard for you guys to believe, but it is possible. And what I would hope is at that point, some younger person who maybe has a better handle on what's going on will take me aside and try to explain something to me. And I'll say, get off my lawn. That's how life works. But yes, it is an interesting idea. Charlie goes to these places, talks to these young people, deprograms a whole bunch of them. As I mentioned earlier, I used to do a lot of these events with him, and they were wonderful, wonderful events. And Charlie is spectacular at it. But should someone be doing it? You know, I went to the Villages. That's like the retirement community where they're all having orgies outside of Orlando. I went there and I spoke. I like those people. You know, they have different loofah sponges in their bathrooms depending on what they're into sexually. Really, that's a thing there. And gonorrhea. There was a huge gonorrhea outbreak. These, you know, they're still alive. But somebody could go in and talk to old people. You know what? I'm going to call my AARP representative and see if we can get me on the circuit. Let's see. Joe says, do you plan on seeing Revenge of the Sith in theaters to celebrate the 20th anniversary? Well, of course. I saw the original 20 years ago in 2005, midnight showing. I saw it in Times Square, New York City. I did stand up earlier in the night and then went to go see it with my buddy Mike. I actually, believe it or not, I'm such a dork. I had a Darth Vader helmet. I did. I really did. I bought a Darth Vader helmet at the Toys R Us in Times Square that day. I had a lightsaber, I was a dork. What can I tell you? I guess I was 28 years old. Revenge of the Sith is a wonderful, wonderful movie. You guys all know my thoughts about the prequels, that they're getting better and better over time. And yes, the acting was a little stiff, and George didn't know exactly how to write the love story stuff. And unfortunately, Hayden Christensen, who played Anakin, not a great actor. But the story, the bulk of the story, which is obviously the story of how this young Anakin Skywalker ultimately becomes Darth Vader, but it really is a story about political power and the struggle in the Senate, and that when you keep creating emergencies, that's what Palpatine first as a senator realized, that if you kept creating emergencies, eventually he would be given all of the power to become the supreme leader of the universe and all of that stuff. It's an unbelievably great story. General Grievous in Sith is just a great character with his cough. They go into a little bit more in some of the other side cartoons about him and a whole bunch more. And but the answer is no. I will not be going to the theater. I have it on whatever I've got, and we watch it once a year. And yeah, no. Do they have movie theaters anymore? I wouldn't even know where I only go to the movie theaters for the new Downton Abbeys. That's my thing now. I'm waiting for Downton Abbey 3. Chris says, hi Dave, is it worth sacrificing Canada if it means saving California? I'm hoping you can find one positive way to look at it. I'm not totally sure what you mean by that. But if the question is something like, should we give away California to maybe bring in Canada? I don't know. You know, Canada is huge. There's not a lot of people. It's got a lot of natural resources. I often talk about how I love so many Canadians, and I love just the Canadian I love the Canadian sense of humor, and like there's something really great there, but it really there's an awful lot of jihadists there now. There really are. And I don't know, should we be importing that? And look, Cali's got all sorts of problems too, and there's no indication that it's getting any better. But Cali, because it's so huge, has a ton of Republicans too. I don't know that it's an either or. Maybe I'm not fully understanding the question properly. But what I would love to see more than anything else is I would like to see them get their houses in order. Like, does Cali have some chance to come back from the abyss? It's hard to see, but maybe. And Canada, who knows? Who knows? Maybe ironically, Trump will have saved Canada by galvanizing them into caring about Canada again, because they thought evil Donald Trump and America was coming for them. They suddenly become proud enough to be Canadians again that they'll deal with their own jihadist problem and some of the other stuff that they've been doing. That seems highly unlikely to me too, but we shall see, and I genuinely wish him a lot of luck. Eurasian says, what color is the door that injured Joseph's finger? Well, now, as you remember, on the show earlier in the week, we played a video clip of Michelle Obama, who is very upset that nobody asks black people about their pain. And my associate producer, Joseph here, I brought him over and I asked him, because no one asks a nice Chinese American about their pain. And he said that he had a little bit of a pinky injury and he was very, very hurt, and he hurt it in the door. So I asked him about his pain on the show. I think we have a picture of the bathroom door that apparently he hurt so that's the door right there that he apparently hurt his finger on, although I've also been told that that whole thing was completely made up just to illustrate I would say, marginal comedic little bit there. James says, other than having nice legs, what worthwhile quality does Stephanie Ruhle possess? Now, Stephanie Ruhle, she's on MSNBC, right? That's her right there. I don't know that I've ever seen her legs. That's the picture we're throwing up of her. A lot of these women, the way it's interesting the way they do it on cable news, because if you're a woman on cable news, you have to wear cutoffs and short skirts. So I'm sure her legs are seen under some of those tables. But, they always have to show their shoulders. And it's kind of funny because the men are always in suits. No one wants to see Wolf Blitzer, this part. Can you imagine how white this part of Wolf Blitzer's arm is? Nobody wants to. Imagine if the men had to just come in cutoffs, like with just their arms. It would be Anderson Cooper, it would just be disgusting. But if you want to see a great set of gams on a chick, how about Tina Turner? We got a Tina Turner legs picture here. Yeah, look at those. Those are legs, baby. And she knew how to use them. Rancher says, which character from The Sopranos do you think you're most like? Now, of course, before I do anything, so we're rewatching The Sopranos right now. We're about halfway through season 5. They're the main guys from Tony's crew. Of course, that's got to be season 1 or 2 because there's Big Pussy over there, and he obviously, spoiler alert, gets knocked out. Season finale, season 2. That's all I'm going to say. But it's 20 years ago. I think I'm allowed to give a spoiler alert. Before I give you my true answer, I will tell you that on this Saturday, it is the 91st birthday of Frankie Valli. And as you know, last month we interviewed Frankie Valli in Fort Myers, and we are putting up our interview with Frankie Valli, which we really built out into more of a mini doc about his career and my affinity for Frankie and the 4 seasons and everything else. Frankie in season 5 debuts, he's a character in The Sopranos, who's on the New York crew, which must have been tough for him because he's the Jersey boy, right? He's the original Jersey boy. They throw him in the New York crew and he's in it for the last 3 seasons, basically. But the character that I'm probably most like, I think, is Silvio. Do we have a picture of Silvio? Because Silvio was Tony's basically his number 2. He was the guy that he was always turning to for advice. He was sort of calm and collected. He had that crazy toupee. This is all my real hair. It's not a toupee. But there was something about him, like if Tony just had a problem or anyone had a problem, he was always brokering peace with everybody. I think I do a little bit of that in the political and cultural world. When I rock he was always known for wearing these very intense, high contrast suits. Dark shirt, dark. I could pull that off. Look at that head of hair, which is definitely not real. And that is, I'm totally blanking on the name of the actor, but he's Bruce Springsteen's bass player or something. What's his name? He's a legend, Steve Van Zandt, right? Yeah. Pretty cool. So yeah, he was like a peacemaker, basically, and a trusted guide for Tony. Let's talk about Tax Network USA and more on the other side. Tax day may have passed, but for millions of Americans, the real trouble is just beginning. If you miss the April 15th deadline or still owe back taxes, the IRS is ramping up enforcement. Every day you wait only makes things worse. The good news? There's still time for Tax Network USA to help. Self-employed or a business owner with messy books? Tax Network USA quickly organizes your finances and gets you back on track. Even post-deadline, a free consultation can help you act now to avoid penalties, threatening letters, and levies. So call 1-800-958-1000 or visit tnusa.com/Dave. Let Tax Network USA help. Mitch says, how long do you think it will be before the progressive left starts the Trump and RFK Jr. are making food unaffordable for the everyday American? That's a good point, right? So like we'll start getting some of these seed oils out of things, and so they'll be replaced obviously with olive oil and avocado oil, let's say in salad dressings. We're gonna get some of these dyes out, and they're gonna have to use some other things to replace that and all these things. And then is there a chance that certain things will cost a bit more for a little while until it scales? Yes, that's basic economics. But as more and more people realize that you should be a little bit more invested in your health, and you should think about, why are you putting so much sucralose in your body? Why are you putting all of these artificial sweeteners? Why are you putting these seed oils and all of these things in your body when there's better ways to do it? Ultimately, hopefully, if enough of us make changes, then, right, supply and demand, and then costs will start coming down. But yes, that will just be, it will be another thing. Like if any price goes up for anything in terms of food, once they make some of these changes, yes, of course they will blame Trump, of course they will blame Bobby, et cetera, et cetera. But I would say the best thing that you could do as it pertains to any of these issues around food or anything else, try to buy as much whole food as possible. I don't necessarily mean shop at Whole Foods. It is not the cheapest. But if you buy whole foods instead of highly processed things, you will probably feel better. You'll probably lose a little bit of weight. You'll probably be poisoning yourself a little bit more. You'll probably actually be fuller longer because they're putting so many chemicals and things that make you hungrier and make you want to eat more. I mean, read about some of the things that are in Pringles that literally encourage you to want more and more and more. It's why if you have one Pringle, you suddenly eat a can. There's an actual reason for that, versus if you were to make chips out of a potato, take a russet potato, put a little olive oil and salt and pepper on it, throw in your air fryer for a half hour, and you eat a couple chips from that thing. You could eat 5 chips and feel good, but for some reason you can't do that with the Pringle. So I just think taking a little more responsibility, and yes, will they blame Trump and everybody else for all that? Of course, but that's what they do. Glenn says, are there any countries you haven't visited that's on your bucket list? Yeah, number one is Japan. We have been trying to figure out a way to get me to Japan for years. I have been offered by a friend of mine who has a supposedly spectacular place there that I can go. My time to really do personal travel obviously is August, and summertime in Japan is pretty brutal. It's very, very hot and humid, so not ideal. So we're trying to figure out a way to maybe do a week's worth of shows from Japan. I think hopefully in 26 is the goal. But I think I've mentioned this before on the show. From 1985, I saw the back of a Nintendo cartridge and it said made in Japan. And I was like, I have to go to this place. And I just think culturally it would be interesting. I'd like to go visit Okinawa, where Mr. Miyagi was from, obviously. I mean, there would be a lot of things to do in Japan, and eat some sushi. I would try. You know what? Here's my commitment to you. I will try the special fish. You know the special fish that they have to cut a certain way, and if they don't cut it right, you will die? I will try the fish. Actually, you'll try the fish. And then if it works out for you, then I'll try the fish. Shelley says, read that Scott Jennings is thinking of running for the Senate, McConnell's seat in Kentucky. He's waiting to hear from Trump before he throws his hat in the race. Have you heard that rumor? I have heard that rumor from a couple people. Look, this is one of those interesting ones. First off, McConnell obviously is not functioning. I mean, it's just entered a Biden level of ridiculousness. He's had these freeze-ups and confusions and all of those things. He's been in power way too long. He's wildly against Trump, which is like he's ruining his own legacy for conservatives and Republicans and all that stuff. Should Scott Jennings jump in? I mean, look, this is where everybody has to kind of figure out their lane. Like, I've had a lot of people over the years ask me to get involved in politics. I had a whole bunch of people that wanted me to get involved in politics and even run for governor when I was in California. I've had people ask me even in the last 2 months, I'm talking about like legit people, that when DeSantis steps away, would I consider running? And there's all sorts of other little things that have popped up over time, or just get involved with administrations and things of that matter. I think that my best skills are doing this, right? Communicating these ideas, doing it in a funny way, hopefully making things a little less hysterical and giving people a good sense of what's going on in the world and enjoying myself while I'm doing it. Scott Jennings has found such a niche. I mean, that's the thing. I didn't know who Scott Jennings was probably a year ago. And now we play clips of the guy 3-4 times a week, right? He's done an incredible job. In some sense, it's a very easy job because they put him against such floundering fools. But he's a really, really good communicator. He's not, you can see this isn't a guy that was like, I've got to be a TV star. He's just a guy who can calmly explain the issues as they are. So that happens to translate quite well on television when you're dealing with a bunch of crazies. So is it necessary that it could be him? Could they find someone else? I don't know. They'll have to decide. But I think if he ran, he would be a good candidate. And I think if he stays, he will be a good TV correspondent. Cool Bomb says, have you found a good doctor whose views are in line with yours? That is a great, great question. And it really is tricky. You guys know a bit about my health journey and the way we try to eat. And, I'm doing stem cells and doing carnivore and I'm doing a lot of different things. By the way, I'm basically, pretty much 6 weeks from completely ripping my knee apart, 15 micro tears and seriously mangling my shoulder with a huge tear. And I did stem cells. I'm basically ready to play. I've got Joey doing, I think we're going to do it next week. We're going to get back out on the court and we're going to tape it as I just do a couple exercises, basketball exercises to get back in. And then I'll be out on the court and we may tape my actual debut with my weekly crew. And then we did a documentary around getting the stem cells and then I'm going to bring the doctor in here because I do think there's just so many amazing things. The idea that you could heal yourself with what is in your body already. They took fat from my back and created the juice, basically, the stem cells that they then injected in my knee to get my knee better when I thought I was never going to play ball again. And I'm basically 2 weeks ago, I was already shooting around, if not even more than that at this point. So in terms of a doctor, I've found certain doctors, like this stem cell doctor who I've mentioned. We have I'd say a pretty good doctor for the kids. I will tell you this, I don't have a regular doctor that I turn to right now, that I personally turn to right now that I love. I do get blood work and all that stuff done every year. I just did it, I think I mentioned this, I did it about 6 months ago because I was getting, it was for life insurance purposes and I was a little concerned because I hadn't had blood work done in a little bit and my stuff came back great. And I was concerned because of the amount of meat that I eat and salt because of carnivore, and my stuff came back really great. You just never know. If someone's got a great, I would like a functional medicine doctor. I want someone who thinks a little bit outside of the box. But if you've got someone in the Miami area, I would definitely be willing to listen. Sarah says, I'm getting married in just 8 short weeks. Let's hear your best marriage and parenting advice. Well, first off, congratulations, Sarah. That is wonderful. That's what it's all about. My best marriage advice is just keep trying to make each other laugh. That is it. Like, still the best joy to me during the day, outside of the kids, is like if I can just still make David laugh. Like if I just say something and make him laugh, it's like, wow, he still gets a kick out of me. That's amazing. And that goes both ways. Like, so, and maybe my love language really is, David always tells me, my love language is comedy, right? Like that's how I'm able to be my realist self with him. That may not be your thing, but I guess it's really just make sure you get a kick out of each other. Like you will be annoyed with each other at times. You will be tired, especially once you have kids, all of those things, obviously. But just make sure that you remember, why the hell did you fall in love with this person in the first place? Why do you want to do this adventure together with them? And just get a kick out of them one way or another, even when it's hard to. And that is definitely the challenge. Parenting advice, rest up. It's exhausting. Especially, we got 2 young kids here that want to climb and wrestle and chase and throw and destroy and all those things. But it's fun, man, when they start just talking more and you suddenly hear phrases out of nowhere that you're like, how did you possibly know that? And then, we took them to the beach last week and building sandcastles and digging holes and talking about the birds and the animals and the shells it just doesn't get better than that. So you're going to have a ball. Congratulations. Last question, Rich. Will we get a return of another panel show? Interesting question, Rich. So we did have a panel show about a year ago. Long story short, that disappeared. I don't want to give away too much, but we actually have been working on something for about a year, and it's big. We have not launched anything new here in terms of a separate show in a long time. We've expanded what we're doing with some out of studio stuff and things like that. And I've mentioned these. We did our ARC mini documentary. We did the Dave's cooking the tomahawk steak. We're making the mini doc around Frankie Valley that I talked about. But yes, we have something cooking. It is coming very soon. It's big. It's not just me. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a little bit different, not so political. And I wasn't planning on talking about it today, but the question was there, so you got the answer. Reminder, I will be at the University of Austin on May 13th. It's mostly for students, but I think they have about 50 tickets for, I guess, what they call regular citizens. Also, on May 7th, I will be at the Biden Center of Economics at the University of Delaware, which I think is open to the public, if I'm not mistaken. And then I've got a couple other, we have a lot of travel stuff coming, but we're going to be doing shows in some other cities, some other countries, and much more coming up soon, so we'll have more on that. It's Friday, so no post-game show. I thank you for watching. Have a great weekend. See you on Monday.